Audio Jungle.
Hello everyone. Today we have with us advanced material researcher Sanika Paranjape. She is doing her doctoral studies from India's top research institute, IISc, Bangalore. So welcome, Sanika.
Thank you, Ramakant. Thank you for inviting me on your channel to share my experience and talk about my research topic.
Okay, so before starting discussion about her research work, we would like to know about her academic background.
So I did my BTech from College of Engineering Pune in mechanical engineering, and after my BTech, I directly joined for the direct PhD program in IISc under the Advanced Manufacturing program.
Sanika, you have got PMRF fellowship. So, how you have applied for this fellowship, and what was the process, and how you got this fellowship, and what was your reaction when you got this fellowship?
Okay, I was definitely happy when I got the mail that I've been selected for this fellowship. So when I joined for the PhD, I was receiving the scholarship from MHRD itself, which is the basic scholarship that I think everyone receives who pursues PhD after clearing exams like GATE or IIT JAM. Last year in May 2020, this PMRF they introduced lateral entry for students who have already been admitted to certain institutions, so they can kind of upgrade their scholarship to from MHRD to PMRF. So that is when I got a chance to apply for PMRF. So they have certain requirements that need to be satisfied, like 8.5 above pointer in during my coursework, and minimum of 4 courses should be done, and many things that people can actually find relevant information on the PMRF website. So I was luckily satisfying these requirements, so I could be eligible to apply for this scholarship. And this year, actually, the process was a bit different. Usually, they conduct interviews, in-person interviews, and people have to go from one place to another to give interviews. But because of this COVID situation, what they did is they asked us to submit a research proposal, a statement of purpose, and a CV, which we were supposed to upload on a portal. And there, even our professors will have to give a recommendation, or anyone you would like to give you a recommendation. And that was the process how it was being like how I applied. So initially, there is a selection at the department level, because in total there are some 1,000 students which PMRF selects from whole of India. So depending on the ranking of the institution, they distribute these 1,000 students within the institutes, and then the institutes decide how they will distribute the number of students allotted to them within the departments. So now our department was allotted to PhD students, like two people. Uh, uh, they can send names of two people forward from our department. So then there are more than, obviously there are more than two people in any department for PhD. So that's why there was first initial selection at department level. Then when I get selected at department level, then they will send it to the PMRF committee finally. So this time actually the process was quite late. We did it in August, and the result was, I think, out by November. So This PMRF is actually a really attractive scholarship that government has introduced, I think, because of two reasons. One is the stipend, and second is the research grant that they are giving us. So stipend is almost double than what MHRD is giving, and this research grant, you can buy all the consumables that you require for your project work. It will cover your travel allowances if you want to attend some conferences, or you can also buy a laptop, tablet, or even printers if you require it. And as long as it is approved by your guide and your institution, you can go ahead with these purchases. So it's kind of a whole package that they have introduced for PhDs, for people doing PhD in India. So when I applied it, I was in a mode that okay, I have applied it, I have done all my effort. For 2 weeks almost, I spent completely on writing the research proposal. So I was like, okay, I have done my part. Whether they will select me or not is completely up to them. And I just forgot that I have applied. I didn't think about it. And one day, suddenly, when I was checking my mail, I got the mail that congratulations, you have got this scholarship. So that was the very happy moment, and it was a second achievement just after. So first achievement of my life that I'm very happy of is getting into IISc, and immediately after this I got the second achievement of getting this PMRF fellowship. So I mean, I'm definitely very excited and more motivated to carry out research here.
So, Sanika, how was your experience for that interview process at ISC back then?
I would actually call this as an accidental PhD because I hadn't planned it really. So in IISc, there are two portals where you can apply. One is for MTech and one is for research. So on the research portal, BTech people can also apply as well as MTech people can also apply. And the interviews are also conducted for everyone in the same slots. So when you go for the interview, they ask you whether you want to come for MTech research or you are applying for PhD. So when I went in, they asked me, I told them that I'm here for MTech. But surprisingly, when I got the call letter, it was for PhD. So I really didn't do anything different, or my profile wasn't anything different when I was applying for this research program. I went for the interview. So the interviews for people who were interviewed before me, they went on for half an hour, 45 minutes. But I left in 10 minutes. So I was completely unsure that why did they send me out in 10 minutes? And I was like, maybe they didn't like my answers and they were like, she is hopeless. She is not able to answer anything. Just let her go. And I was completely in a mode that, ISC is very high level for me, and this is not the place for me. I won't be definitely selected here. And I went home feeling sad that okay, it's fine. I mean, there was a feeling that okay, I haven't learned anything in my BTech. I don't know anything. So that was the period. But surprisingly, everything was very unexpected. So I got a call letter from IISc, and when I met people here, everyone's experience is quite similar. No one actually thought that they would get selected in IISc. So I think that they ask you till certain depth. When you start feeling that okay, I don't know anything, and you come out with that feeling, whereas you have answered some questions with which they are already satisfied. And one other thing was that my gate rank was in 2000 in mechanical paper. So if we consider the 1.5 lakh people who apply, 2000 rank seems good. But at this rank, it is very difficult to get a call for MTech. And case was I wasn't even going to apply for IISc because I knew that ISC is the topmost institute, and with 2000 rank, no one is going to even look at my profile. But still, I applied, and the thing is, wherever there are interviews, even 2000 to 2500 or maybe 3000 if you are lucky, you will get a call, and it depends on your profile till your BTech or till your MTech. So if you are consistent enough and you have good marks and good pointer throughout, maybe you get a chance to get an interview in ISC.
Yes, might be this consistent record plays a very big role. Means you might be having a very consistent record throughout your graduation.
Yes, so if you are not consistent, then you need to have a very great gate score. So you need to have 1 or 2 plus points in you, and then you can get landed in any of the IITs or IISc.
What difference do you feel now when you were doing PhD on MHRD fellowship and now you are selected, means upgraded to a PMRF? Is there any change in your attitude or responsibilities or something?
Yes, like PMRF is demanding some responsibilities from us. Like we have to give 6 monthly reviews. So 2 reviews are from a panel that sits from our institute professors itself, I think, and one is an external review process. So although PMRF is a great gain money wise or fellowship wise, but it has some responsibilities also. And this year they also introduced this teaching requirement. So we have to teach for 15 hours in a school or in a college, or help the teachers with this online thing, because everything is very new, and so anything, but we have to contribute 15 hours towards teaching in any way we can. So that is one new responsibility that they have added. So you asked that what is the difference in my attitude. So I actually like to study things and I like to research. So I had decided that when I was getting 31,000 stipend, I wasn't sad about it, because uh, I had decided that okay, that is something extra that I'll get, but it is going to come with some responsibilities. Like now, I have to be more proactive in doing my work. So if I can't give results in 6 months, or I can't show them that I've done this much work, they can surely take away my scholarship at any time. So that pressure is there that we have to work more. But I don't think there would have been any change in attitude. Obviously, people will now think that, oh, you have already got PMRF, you will obviously say that attitude won't change. But even when I was thinking that I may not get, because thing is, I am directly from BTech, and most of the PhDs here have done their MTech and joined PhD here. So obviously they have publications. Their thinking is more mature than me. They have their research proposals already, crystallized more than me. So I wasn't really sure that they would consider me. So I was like, it's okay. I mean, even if I don't get it, I like my research. If I do good here, if I learn many things, if I do good research, finally, I feel happy when I understand something, or when I get some good results, or when I do even a little thing. If I do good in one day, I'm happy. So I don't think getting the scholarship or not getting the scholarship would have changed my attitude.
Now we would like to discuss about what is your current area of research and means what you are doing in your doctoral studies.
My research work is based on 3 main topics, which are metal matrix composites, polymer derived ceramics, and severe plastic deformation processes. So, a combination of these three is a very interesting one, and is very all these topics are very recently developed, like in maybe last 30 or 40 years. So it's very interesting to be working on these topics. So our main aim is usually to uh, improve the properties of the base metal. So generally, people do add alloying elements to metal to improve properties like tensile strength, ductility, wear resistance, corrosion resistance, high temperature properties, and so many things depending on the application. So what we are going to do is we are going to make a composite uh, to improve or to control these properties like I mentioned before. So I will be adding ceramic particles to the metal, and this is this comes under a common name of metal matrix composites. So why it is particularly called as a metal matrix composite is because there can be ceramic matrix composites or polymer matrix composites depending on the material which you choose as the base material. So these metal matrix composites have been developed since long. It's not a new thing, but we are going to choose solid state severe plastic deformation processes to fabricate these metal matrix composites. So this process has also been used previously in recent studies, and some other methods are also used for fabrication of these metal matrix composites. And the main aim of using all of these processes is just one thing: to distribute the ceramic particles throughout the metal. These ceramic particles that we will be adding are added as reinforcement to the metal. I particularly will be concentrating on studying the tensile strength and ductility of the metal matrix composite that will be fabricated by our method. So this is the interesting part, and this is something different of our fabrication method, which is we are going to use polymer derived ceramics, which are different from the ceramics that are usually being used for uh, fabricating these metal matrix composites. So as the name suggests, the polymer derived ceramics can be obviously derived from the polymers through some processing. So we will be adding polymer powder and mixing it in the metal, and we will convert that polymer to ceramic inside the metal itself. So this way we will finally make the metal matrix composite. So there are certain advantages of this process, there are certain disadvantages of this process, and we are trying to maximize the advantage and at the same time trying to convert the disadvantages to our advantage also. So we are trying basically different combinations of metal and polymer to develop this new kind of material. So this is really advanced manufacturing field. So this topic is really in line with the PhD program title. It's really very new material that we are trying to develop here, and I think very few people are working on this topic, and there is very few literature related to this. Whatever I've seen is from seniors of our lab itself. So there are two things with this also. You might think that this is a very new topic, so it might be very easy to get results, but there is there is other side to that there is no literature available. We have to start from very basic. We have to conduct very basic experiments, and everything we have to start from level 0.
The application of your work in terms of industry?
Basic idea is that in alloying elements, the thing is it is very difficult to separate the elements. And if you consider aluminium, only aluminium, there are almost thousands of alloys. So if it's in scrap, you cannot characterize all the material and put in chemicals to separate them. So I think if we can use these ceramic particles, only the ceramic particles, to control all the properties, or at least have a cover the range of properties, like maybe tensile strength, that is covered by these alloys, then maybe we can reduce the number of different elements that are included in a composite. So these ceramic particles, they don't get fused with the metal, like they won't melt if we melt the metal. So we can easily separate them because these ceramic particles are lighter than the metal, so they will just float up and we can easily separate them. So that is one idea, that this if we can develop successful metal matrix composites, uh, I think we can be able to develop recyclable metals, because problem with metal matrix composites is that they have very unpredictable properties. Because there is not good bonding between the ceramic and the metal, so they usually crack at very lower strains. So recyclable metal is one of the application, and other than that, since I'm particularly working with magnesium, magnesium is a lightweight metal, and this ceramic. So if you have heard of precipitation hardening alloys, then in that case, what happens is if you go near to the solidus temperature, these precipitates dissolve. And at these temperatures, there is a large grain growth, and the metal loses all its strength that it has derived because of the precipitation. So this thing won't happen in metal matrix composites. So you can maintain high strength till very large temperatures. Like there has been a paper recently where they could maintain good properties of copper till zero point 0.9 of the melting temperature. So that is a very great achievement that metal matrix composites have achieved. But the thing is, like I said, we use different processes to distribute the particles in the metal. So getting a uniform distribution is a really difficult task. What is happening inside while we are processing it is very difficult to control from outside, because all this happens at micro level and nano level. So we can just control our temperature, we can control our processing parameters, but we cannot control the actual atoms where they go and sit, or how the ceramic particle is sitting. So uh, this high temperature strength, high temperature properties, creep resistance is another application of metal matrix composite. So magnesium, if you consider only magnesium, then it is a light metal. So uh, it is even lighter than aluminium. So you can even replace aluminium by magnesium as long as you can match the properties of aluminium. Uh, like magnesium has low ductility, so it will crack at very lower strains as compared to aluminium. And so there are certain challenges here, that if we can achieve this kind of properties, then even magnesium metal matrix composite can be brought into use. So in aerospace, or I don't think in space applications magnesium is preferable, because it catches fire and it would be dangerous. But in aerospace, I think for making the chassis or something, we can definitely use this lightweight material. But there are many things that need to be improved for magnesium, and the very basic and main is the ductility of magnesium. Because it has a HCP structure, like we have studied these structures in 10th or 12th, hexagonal closed packing, FCC, face-centered cubic, um, body-centered cubic. So these structures actually matter when you are looking at the properties. So magnesium is a HCP metal, and it has a lot of anisotropy in it. If you roll it, it will immediately develop a texture, that is, grains are oriented in one particular direction, and this is problematic for some applications. It may be advantageous for some other applications, but these are few things that we need to be able to control, so that we can actually put to use these magnesium metal matrix composites to use in industry. And I think it will take a long time for this particular new material to be usable in industry, because this is in very initial stage. Obviously, you might know that right now we are doing lab experiments. We are experimenting with this like 70 by 30 size samples, and what we need for industry is bulk production. So this is very basic uh, studies that we are trying to understand what is happening. So applications and going to the industry will slowly develop as we come up with new properties, good properties of these composites. This topic is quite interdisciplinary. Like even manufacturing students, material students, mechanical students, and since we are including polymer derived ceramics, even chemical engineering students can find this particular research topic interesting. So, I mean, although this program is in CPDM and it's more related to, like, the title is also advanced manufacturing, it is very rare that people from chemical engineering would think of applying here for joining this kind of like joining our lab or our professor. So this could be a very useful addition for our group, because as a mechanical engineer myself, I have very limited knowledge of these PDCs. So expertise in PDC is definitely a boon. So people should, when they apply for PhD, they should look for what the professor is working on. So for, like, I have seen in physics department, there was a guy from biology background. They would think that what is he doing there, but they are working on some blood cultures or on the chip testing, or there's something new technology that is coming that instantly you get the test result. So for that, they need someone from biology who understands blood cells, white blood cells, red blood cells, and all those things. So people can always find something that is relevant to them in other departments also.
So, Sanika, how was your experience in staying in ISC, in the hostels and the labs and the environment which you got there to work?
I had that strong will to, I wanted to come here, and the campus is really very soothing and peaceful. And since the campus is closed, we can go for a walk at night. There is no restriction in hostels when we can come back or go out. Outside campus also, we are usually allowed to go, but because of the situation right now, the third wave is coming and all those things, the exit from campus is restricted. But otherwise, everything is very nice. I haven't had any complaints about food. There are 4 messes in total here, 2 North Indian and 2 South Indian mess. One is non-veg, one is veg. So, like, if you have much variety over here, you can change your mess every 3 months. Other than that, there are 2 canteens here. Uh, so one is, we call it as Sarvam Complex. So there are 2-3 hotels, one South Indian, again one North Indian, juice center, cakes and all. Everything you will get, whatever you want, whenever you want. And other necessities, basic necessities like some chips and chocolates. So basic grocery shops, laundry, pharmacy, hair cutting salon, tailors. Everything is there inside the campus. There is another supermarket also inside the campus. So the campus in total is kind of self-sufficient. So we rarely have to even go outside our campus. And if we go out also, it's quite nice. Just 10 minutes walk. We have our Orion Mall. We have ISKCON Temple. So I mean, it's very nice experience.